Hey Lakers fans, this is Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast, and today we are going to break down the strengths and weaknesses of the Lakers' newest big man signing, former Arizona Wildcat and Toronto Raptor, Christian Koloko. Because whenever one Christian man goes out, another must rise up and take his place. Because we are a Christian Lakers nation, goddammit. I'm talking about Christian Wood, by the way. But anyway, the Lakers have now officially signed clutch client Christian Koloko to a two-way contract, waiving shooting wing Blake Hinson in the process. Koloko did not play the last season in the NBA due to a blood clot issue and was waived by the Toronto Raptors at the trade deadline. He has since been medically cleared by his own doctors and has been taking part in a number of 5-on-5 scrimmages with different NBA players this summer, and now only awaits full clearance from the NBA's Fit to Play Council. But assuming he gets that clearance, what can we expect out of Christian Koloko this season? Let's get right into it. So who is Christian Koloko, or El Pollo Koloko, as I like to call him? Christian Koloko is a tall, athletic, defensive lob big who's 24 years old. He is a legit 7 feet in height. He has an insane 7'5" plus wingspan, which instantly puts him second on the Lakers behind Anthony Davis in terms of longest wingspans on the team, and he weighs 230 pounds. And given how tall he is, he could definitely stand to bulk up and get a little bit stronger. In college, he played 3 years at Arizona, and during his senior season, he averaged 12.6 points on 63% from the field and 73% from the free throw line, 7.3 rebounds, and 2.8 blocks. During his senior year in 2022, he was named Pac-12 All-Defensive Player of the Year and the league's Most Improved Player of the Year as well. He was drafted 33rd by the Toronto Raptors in the second round of the 2022 NBA Draft, and during his rookie season with the Raptors, he averaged 3.1 points on 48% from the field, 3 rebounds, and 1 block in just 14 minutes a game through 58 games. His 1 block average in just 14 minutes of play is particularly impressive, and per 36Ys, that projects out to about 2.6 blocks per game, which is in line with what Koloko did his senior year in college and in the G League. Speaking of the G League, Koloko played in 12 games for the Raptors' 905 G League team, where he averaged 13 points on 57% from the field, 8 rebounds, and 2.8 blocks in 27 minutes per game. All right, now that we've got some of Koloko's basics out of the way, if you guys could please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button on this channel, like the video, share the video, comment down below. This humble Filipino-American boy would greatly appreciate it. Salamat po. Okay, now let's dive into some of Koloko's strengths and weaknesses and look at some tape. Offensively, Christian Koloko is the definition of a vertical lob threat. But he's not just one of these loafing 7-footers who can only catch lobs because he's tall and long. Christian Koloko has got some nice pogo stick bounce to him and can get off the ground pretty quickly for pick and roll lobs. And once he skies for the ball, because of his lanky octopus arms, he's got an insane catch radius. So all ball handlers need to do is throw the ball high up into the air, and even if it's not a perfect pass near the rim, Christian Koloko will find a way to guide the ball into the basket. As the general roll man in the pick and roll, he's got pretty good instincts of knowing when to flare out, catch the ball in stride, and then finish strong at the basket. Off ball, he's adept at making himself available in the dunker spot and likes to go up strong with 2 hands and hammer the ball down with a combination of force and athletic quickness that often has the defense reacting too slow to affect his finishes. Koloko also runs the floor very well for a big man. He doesn't have too much of an awkward running gait and looks pretty fluid when running up and down the floor. And more often than not, he really hauls ass and hustles down the court after any turnover or rebound. Now, he's not much of a spacing big at all, which we'll get further into in the weaknesses portion of this video, but he does flash some touch from just outside of the paint with this quirky one-handed 8-foot push shot that he likes to throw up from time to time. Lastly, Christian Koloko is a really good offensive putback sort of player. He does a really good job of tracking missed shots and has really good timing when it comes to knowing when to jump off of the floor for these errant rebounds. Because he's so skinny, opposing rebounders tend to lose track of him, and before they know it, he's already in the air angling for the ball. And once he's skybound, Koloko's long gangly arms do the rest of the work in flushing the ball down for some nice rim-rocking putbacks. Staying on the topic of rebounding, while his numbers don't prominently show it, Koloko is a very active rebounder with great hustle and motor. In general, he really goes after the ball and does everything in his power to keep possessions alive for his team. And thanks again to his Mr. Fantastic arms, even if he's not able to secure the board, you'll often see him get to a loose ball by tapping the ball out to his teammates to secure multiple possessions for them. And when it comes to his defensive rebounding, he has pretty solid box-out technique and knows how to leverage his scrawny frame to create space in the paint. And then from there, again, his long gangly arms do the rest of the work in snatching these balls away from opposing rebounders. He's a good contested rebounder who has a wide rebounding radius and will actively seek out the rebound instead of waiting for the ball to simply bounce to him. Check out his insane reach as he stretches his arms out to pry the board away from Bam Adebayo. Or watch this clip of him against Clint Capella where, even when he's out of position, he's still able to tower over Clint Capella's head and tap the ball to himself to eventually secure the board. Now, looking at his defensive strengths, defensively, as I've been saying this entire video, it all comes back to Koloko's long pterodactyl arms, which are truly his greatest weapon. So let's talk about the obvious. Christian Koloko is an elite shot blocker who can get to shots that not even the most prolific shot blocking centers can. But on top of that, he's also got good quick twitch awareness and is pretty quick off of the floor. He gives second and third efforts when contesting shots, and you can forget about it if he has the time to wind up and jump off of 2 feet, because at that point, he's going up with the full force of his sheer athleticism and length to meet you at the top and send a physically imposing message. Not in my Christian home. And when you combine his vertical athleticism with his length, Koloko's reach is so otherworldly that he's even able to block a big man's worst nightmare in the dreaded floater. Watch here as Trae Young goes right at him and tries to loft his patented rainbow floater. But Koloko jumps, outstretches his ridiculous 7'5" wingspan, and is able to meet the floater right at the top and get his fingernails on it, stopping it right in its tracks. But the fact that he can not only block floaters, but block them at their apex is a true demonstration of what a next-level shot blocker he truly is. Outside of his tremendous rim protection, Koloko's also got pretty good feet and is pretty mobile for a big man out on the perimeter. He isn't completely toast against ball-handling guards in space, and doesn't get thrown off when guards start going into their dribbling bag. And even after all of that shuffling, he still has the motor to contest out to jump shots. And because of his nimble feet, he's very solid guarding the pick and roll in drop coverage, where he does a good job of tagging the roll man while always keeping an active eye on the ball handler. Watch here as he backpedals on the ball handler, who lobs it up to Rudy Gobert slipping on the backside. But Christian Koloko is able to easily read the play and outstretch his arms to break up the alley-oop. So whether it's pressuring the primary ball handler and disrupting the rhythm, or making up ground with his long arms to recover to the roll man, Christian Koloko has really solid reflexive instincts and technique in how he guards these pick and roll actions. He isn't overwhelmed by fast guards going downhill on him and taking him off the dribble. He stays in lockstep with them and always does his best to meet guards right at the rim to bother or reject their final shots. Lastly, and just in general overall, Christian Koloko is just a really good hustle garbage man type on the defensive end who really moves all around the court. He's a very engaged and attentive defender who will come out to help pressure and trap a ball handler, but then also race back into the paint to try and block a shot when the ball is thrown near the basket. He's far from a stationary big and will cover a lot of ground just to make sure he's stopping the ball at every turn. And when you can combine that type of activity with that freakish length, you begin to envision a very high defensive ceiling for the Koloko Moko. Okay, so now let's move on to some of his weaknesses. First and foremost, Christian Koloko is not a floor spacer. I know he's been trying to work on this part of his game in the NBA, but he simply does not have a reliable enough jump shot, and it's much too slow and mechanical in general. Statistically speaking, he shot 3 of 19 from 3 in the G League and hit 1 of 12 from 3 in the NBA. So yeah, stop trying to make fetch happen. Once in a blue moon, if he's super wide open, he can hit a shot from the outside because he does have a solid shooting stroke and is a decent free throw shooter. He shot low 70s in college and in the G League. But put simply, I do not envision him ever becoming a jump shooting big, whether it's from the 3-point line or the mid-range. Now, when it comes to his overall offensive game beyond shooting, he's just super raw and pretty uncoordinated in all of his movements on that end of the floor. In spite of his crazy lobs and putbacks, Christian Koloko is actually a pretty questionable finisher in the paint. He only shot 48% from the field with the Raptors his rookie season. If it's not an uncontested lob or a two-handed jam, Christian Koloko's finishes in the paint can be quite the adventure. He has very little touch and feel inside of the paint and can be very easily deterred and disrupted in space if he has to do anything more than dunk the ball. He's so lacking as a finisher that just sliding a guard over to impede his path to the basket makes him malfunction completely at times. In a lot of ways, he's a bit like Jared Vanderbilt as a finisher, but even worse, with very little finesse and control over his movements in traffic when trying to go up. If he has the ball in his hands for more than a few seconds and has to do something with it, he looks like an awkward giraffe buckling over his knees, so he'll need to continue to build a stronger center of gravity eventually. He also just has poor overall passing feel and shouldn't be relied upon to make any cross-court passes or intermediate reads besides a simple dribble handoff as a screener. But even that can be problematic because he picks up a lot of offensive fouls as a screener. He can be pretty uncoordinated with his movements when setting a pick and either sets a moving screen or gets caught sticking a stray arm or leg out that gets him into trouble. And on the defensive side of the ball, he also historically has had a problem with fouling. He can be a bit too overeager and antsy a defender at times and will reach far too often, showing a bit of an undisciplinedness that needs to be refined. And in the post, because of his very slight frame, he can be pushed around by bigger, more athletic defenders with a lower center of gravity, and can struggle to gain proper positioning on them. So, Nikola Jokic stopper in the post, he probably is not. So there's the good and the bad of Christian Koloko's game. Now, when it comes to comping him to another NBA player, who does he show some flashes of? The player Christian Koloko most reminds me of would probably be a taller, less quick twitch athletic version of Nick Claxton. Nick Claxton is also very lanky and frail, but he's very active defensively and really knows how to use his motor and length to alter shots at the rim. Now, for some of you older NBA heads, Christian Koloko also kind of reminds me of a Samuel D'Alembert type. Long, imposing, but still a little bit clunky and uncoordinated at times. Nothing too overly flashy or complicated with D'Alembert, but at the end of the day, you knew exactly who he was, a rim protector. So, in conclusion, I'm overall really intrigued by Christian Koloko's outliery physical tools and length. I also love his motor, mobility, and defensive awareness. He really seems like a try-hard on defense who, for better or for worse, only knows how to tap the turbo button and go after the ball. And while I'm excited about his potential, I do not think he will crack the Lakers' rotation right off of the bat, nor do I think that he should already supplant Jackson Hayes or even Christian Wood when Christian Wood returns. He still has very real health hurdles that he needs to clear, and overall, he just needs to play some real NBA games first and prove that he can withstand the rigors of a full NBA season once again. Because remember, he is a full year removed from playing actual high-intensity contact basketball. So because of that, I think he'll play a lot of games with the South Bay Lakers to start out the season, but also be a guy who's frequently called up by the big squad to serve as a high-quality insurance big off of the Lakers bench. At the end of the day, I would just temper my expectations for Christian Koloko given his overall rawness offensively and his lack of NBA experience and reps. And I do think the Lakers still need to make a trade for a more established NBA big man who has proven himself in real games. But should things check out health-wise for Christian Koloko this year, I like that the Lakers took a flyer on him, and at the end of the day, I would not be surprised if they offered him a standard contract at some point this year should they clear some roster spots. Christian Koloko is a fun project big with real defensive upside and some tantalizing measurables, who I think could really benefit the Lakers down the line should he stick. But what do you guys think about Christian Koloko? Are you guys loco for Koloko or kind of lukewarm on him? Let me know in the comments below, and please remember to like this video, share it, and please subscribe to this channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Till next time, this has been Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast. See you guys later.